In a study of 500,000 pupils from across England, what we found was that the process of identification for specific learning difficulties is not equitable. Where the students come from, their backgrounds, the schools they attend matter in addition to what their actual reading or math score is. We wanted to understand, if we looked at the population data of all students, close to 500,000 students across year 6, across England, whether these students were getting identified similarly across schools for access to services for specific learning difficulty. In our findings, we found that children who were males had a much higher probability of getting identified, sometimes 2 times more likely to get identified for services than if they were female with more or less the same low reading or math score. What we also wanted to see is if school context matters. So let's say you have 2 schools. One is a high achieving school where most children in these schools score above average than the national on reading or math, and then we have a low achieving school where most kids are performing below average compared to the national average. And let's say we take student A, who's a low reader, and we imagine this kid goes to the high achieving school compared to the low achieving school. Their odds of getting identified in the high achieving school is much higher because they look so much more different than their peers when it comes to reading. If we place the student in a low achieving school, then their odds become much lower of getting identified for services because they look so much more similar than their peers who are mostly performing below average. And so school context, where this kid goes, makes a huge difference in whether they get identified for services or not. And what this tells us is that many children who need access to services are potentially not getting access to those services, and thus are not getting the supports that they need to help improve their academic outcomes. And government policy needs to clearly outline what schools and teachers need to do to identify students so this process is equitable across all schools and children don't miss out on access to services because they went to one school instead of another school.